Hi guys, and welcome back to another Monster Hunter World the board game painting tutorial. Today we're carrying on working through the Wild Spire Waste box, and we're going to be painting up the absolutely lovely Pukei Pukei model that comes in this box. Now to start off, I'm going to prime it in a nice grey primer, just sort of like a mid-grey primer using the Colour Forge one, and then I'm going to give it a blast all over with the airbrush, or mostly all over with the airbrush, in an off-white colour. This is just so that I've got a nice bright base coat to work from to apply the nice bright colours, because this model, more than any of the others, is a lovely, vibrant, colourful monster, and I really wanted to capture that. Once I got all the base white and grey down, I wanted to start going in and adding the colours. So I'm adding a bit of a darker desaturated green to the sort of spines on the wings, to the tail, to anywhere where I want a bit more of a shaded colour. And then once I've added that all in, I'm going to start adding in some turquoise on the sort of the arms, stronger part of the wings, and the feathers, just so I've got a bit of variety in there, and it's not just all the same sort of green. I want different tones of green through turquoise and blue and purple. So I added that on there. Once I'd added that on, I started adding a lighter green on the sort of webbed areas of the wings, the larger surface area on the wings. And I'm using the airbrush for most of this, getting all these colours down, because I want that natural blend between the different colours, because that is how it would look. It wouldn't just be a flat straight line of this bit's this colour and then this bit is this colour. You'd get that natural blend, and there'd be a bit of crossover, and it would sort of vary depending on different parts of the animal. So I want to sort of get that in there using the airbrush. I added a slightly lighter green just on a few areas as a little bit of a highlight, nothing too major, and then I went in with a peach Caucasian sort of skin colour just to add these onto the tabs on the ends of the wings, on top and underneath, and then I added a little bit of it as well down the underside of the Pukei Pukei and on the back of the legs, again sort of blending it into where the green goes, so that it's not just a hard flat line where one starts and one finishes. I got to this point of painting and I wasn't particularly happy with how the green was looking. It was a bit too desaturated, so I added a nice green glaze to the airbrush, and I applied it mostly to the areas that I wanted to be darker or more shadowed, but then adding a bit of variety and applying it to a few places just to bring that green back up a little bit. Once I'd done that, I started dry brushing the feathers with a lighter blue, just catching the edges, trying not to go too hard with it, just again to add that variety so that it's fading out from one blue to another, from the green to turquoise to blue, and that added that variety in there. While I was doing that, I also gave a quick dry brush to the spines on the wings just to add more colour variety on them, so it wasn't all just green on the wings. And then I started adding in some purple and blue glazes on the head frills so that they've got nice bit of punch of colour. And I started adding in the different colours on the different sections of the tails, purple and then a sort of nice magenta colour. By this point, it is just a case of picking out details, adding in final sort of shades and washes and colours. The tongue one was especially fun to paint on this model because it's such a big part of Pukei Pukei as a monster in the game. I wanted to make sure I got that right. So I added various different pinks, different shades, some lighter, some darker, and kept going back and forth on that until I was fairly happy with it. And we're going to come back to the tongue a little bit later on to finish that off. For the eyes, I just started off with a white base coat. I added a pale yellow and then added an orange glaze all over, and then once that had dried, I went back in with that same pale yellow just to tidy up the middle, and then added the black line in the centre. A lot of the tutorials that I've been doing for the Monster Hunter monsters have demonstrated that you can get a lot of painting done using very easy techniques like large areas using airbrushing and dry brushing, and then as long as you go back in and pick out the details or some of the details later on, the end result does look really, really good. For the basing, I'm just doing my tried and tested method of adding some muddy texture to the centre areas, and then on the side areas adding in some Geek Gaming Scenics basing glue, and then a couple of different base readies. I think I'm using Patchy Plains and a Forest Floor one, I think. Once I've got that on, while the glue is drying, I then added in some sealant all over. I tend to do this on everything now because the end result is that the basing material just dries absolutely rock solid, nothing moves it. So I highly recommend doing that. And something else I've started doing with the Monster Hunter stuff is adding some of the dirty down moss effect while it's all still wet, because that soaks in and it sort of tints some of the ground in that green colour, so it makes it look more natural. I added a gloss varnish to the tongue, and then while that was drying I added some tufts and some flowers to the base, because Pukei Pukei is usually fought in a bit of a flowered environment in the Wild Spire Waste, so I wanted to represent that on the base. And then once I'd got all that done, it's time to add the finishing touch to the tongue with some UV resin. Now this stuff is fairly easy to work with, it's fairly gloopy so it doesn't tend to flow everywhere. I just put a couple of bits on the tongue, worked it into sort of a shape that I wanted to show some like spit coming off the tongue, and then once it was where I wanted it to be, I just dried that using a UV torch so it's nice and set. Tidied up the base rim, and that was Pukei Pukei all finished. I'm really enjoying getting to paint up these monsters that I've been fighting for such a long time on the video game version, and then getting to play the board game version with my friends as well. I hope you're enjoying this series. If you are, leave a like and a comment down below. If you're brand new, subscribe to the channel, and until next time guys, enjoy your hobby.